Commissioner. Thank you. It being the appointed hour of 4 o'clock, I'm going to call the meeting of the Assembly of Delegates to order, and I would ask that you stand and pledge allegiance to the flag with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Richard Anderson.
Here.
Ronald Bergstrom.
Here.
Mark Boardman.
Here.
George Bryant.
Present.
Dennis Fonseca.
Here.
Raymond Gottwald.
Here.
Marcia King.
Here.
Sheila Lyons.
Here.
Thomas Lynch.
Here.
John Oman.
Here.
Anthony Scalise.
Here.
Fred Schilt.
Here.
Charlotte Striebel.
Here.
Julia Taylor.
Here.
Madam Speaker, we have a quorum with 97.55% of the delegates present.
Thank you. On the calendar of business, I am going to make a slight change under when we convene. I'm going to move item number 11 to be item number 10 because I think that we can probably get through the proposed resolution 0701 quickly and leave more time for talk on ordinance 0703. So with that change, are there any other changes to the calendar of business? If not, is there a motion?
Madam Speaker, I move we change the order of the ordinances, number 11 first and number 10 second, as proposed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. The approval of the Journal of April 18th, 2007. Are there any additions, corrections, or changes that need to be made? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept this journal?
Madam Speaker, I move we approve the Journal of April 8th, 2007.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Now we'll go to communications from the county commissioners. Thank you. Chairman Lambros is here, Vice Chairman Mary LeClaire, and Commissioner William Doherty. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for coming.
Good afternoon, everyone. One of the first things that I wanted to talk about this afternoon was the fact that we had, oh, yep, it's on. It's on?
Yeah.
Is that better? Mm-hmm. Okay. We had a seminar the other night for nurses on Lyme disease, and it was very well attended. There was 120 nurses there, and I would just like to say that our two departments, the Extension and the Health Department, put that on together, and Lance was with me, and we learned so much about the new things that are happening with Lyme disease and the different diseases with the ticks, and it was very informative and very well received, and our two departments should be very proud of the job they did the other night.
I just want to make sure that everybody is aware that the Flex route is going nonstop between Truro and Provincetown starting on May 25th. And that in June 23rd, the Flex route for the Lower Cape will be running every 45 minutes, 7 days a week, with the added feature that at places that it's safe to pull over, the bus can be flagged. So I think that these are important things for people to know in the 7 towns on the Lower Cape that are utilizing the service. So we wanted to make sure that people were aware of it. A news release covering all of this has gone out. I've given you a copy of it with more details, and hopefully folks will see that in their local papers.
Thank you, Bill. Just wanted to give a quick update on some of the work that the county commissioners have been doing today. We met with the chiefs of police. As you know, we've been supportive of the chiefs of police training program over the last 3 years, $50,000 in grants each year that, again, they explained to us that they were going to come in front of the Assembly delegates shortly, working with Speaker Striebel, that they would like to come in front of you to explain the different things that they've done. They have a very nice brochure that shows all the training that they have been doing for the 500 police officers on Cape Cod. Again, one of those programs that even though we wanted to support them again this year because we did not have the money, we could not. They were in front of us, though, requesting that, asking if there was any way that we might be able to help them. In addition, the sheriff was there with us. The sheriff reported that he will have a $3.7 million shortfall over the next 2 weeks. We are not quite sure how to handle that and what he will do. Right now, he was trying to work with the State House. He delivered a letter to the governor the other day explaining the situation. As you know, our sheriff, along with other county sheriffs, get partly funded during the year and then have to go back as the year continues to try to get continued funding. The state sheriffs, however, get full funding. So that's one of the other reasons why we've always thought it would be better for the sheriff to be at the state to get full funding. However, we are in a situation where he gets grouped in with other county sheriffs that are not in the state program, and we seem to run into this year after year. Unfortunately, the dip in the Registry of Deeds funds hurt him as much as it hurt us, and he will have a shortfall. We're not sure exactly, as I said, what we plan to do about this, but he expects that he'll be out of funds over the next 2 or 3 weeks. In addition, I just wanted to touch base that every year we do have to tour the jail. The commissioners toured the jail last week, and it is a spectacular facility. Mr. Bryant joined us. Certainly, if anybody wants to go to the jail or tour it at any time, the sheriff has an open door policy to any of the people, constituents on the Cape, but certainly the elected representatives who would like to go through. It is an amazing facility. Right now, we have somewhere in the area of 400 people there. At that time, he was housing some of the people from New Bedford who had got caught up in the illegal immigrant sting, I guess, down there, and they were working with the federal government to try to take care of them as good as they can. They had a translator there working with them, and we happened to walk in on one of their sessions. We also took a tour of the new 911 building. As you know, the sheriff is moving from the office up here to a brand new building, and let me tell you, it is a spectacular building. It will be able to house the 911 that we have. It is housed with the MMR fire station, and it is, as George will tell you, an absolutely state-of-the-art building that's fantastic for us to be there. We are looking forward to that move sometime this summer. We expect to be able to move our 911 from here to there. Our BCI will stay up on the hill. In addition, I just wanted to report that as we've been keeping an eye on Registry of Deeds funds, April was down again. As predicted, as budgeted, but we were hoping that it would go up, but it was off again. I do want to just take a second to go over this list that Mary had just given you. I think there was some, as we went through the budget process, some information that we could have done, or personally I could have done, to share with you folks better on some of the cuts that we made to our departments. And this just highlights, somewhere in the area of $1.5 million that our own departments cut. Of course, we had to cut $1.7 million from our overall budget, but there's always, I guess, numbers that fly around, and, I was very clear, I think, when I came here a month ago to tell you that each and every department took a hit, but this just gives you the list. CLAMS got cut, the Arts Foundation got cut $5,000, an affordable housing monitor that we've had for the last 3 years got cut. HAC came to us a couple weeks ago looking for some money for a renewable energy program that they're going to run, and we did not have the funds to that. You can see that was cut $100,000. Our cooperative extension for both prior prevention and land use mini grants, $75,000 each. Those were monies that went directly back to the towns. They got cut. And as you go down them, from the health department to the Children's Cove to elder services, as I said earlier, the police training, the EDC budget this year, they actually took the full staff salary out of the EDC grants, so that's money that's not going to go back to the community and economic development grants, but be used for salaries. In addition, as you look down some of the kind of general cuts that were made in supplies and materials, professional services and equipment, down at the bottom section, you could see the commission staff actually had to be cut to the tune of $140,000. So we all did take a hit. On behalf of Bill and Mary and myself, we worked very hard to present you with a budget this year. We certainly understand that there are needs out there that have not been met. We would certainly love the opportunity to have met everything, but as Bill has said, there are infinite needs and finite resources, and I think we did the very best that we could. I just want to end by saying thank you to Charlotte. She worked very close with us this year. In fact, tried to make pretty much every one of the county commissioners' meetings. I think did an excellent job communicating back to the body here of where we were as a group at the executive level. Also, John Oman was available for most of our meetings. And over the last couple of weeks, as you folks have decided what to do with certain areas of the budget, Ray has been very good in communicating with the county commissioners and our department through Mark and Maggie to let us know what you folks are considering through your finance department and on the overall budget. So once again, we appreciate the work that you folks did this year. I think it went smoother. We did, I mentioned to Charlotte that we're on a time frame again where it's kind of crunch time. We specifically started this process early, going by the Charter Review Committee to try to not get to where we are now. And I think it's something that after this budget is over, we can talk about how we may be able to move that up a little closer so none of us are under the deadline to make certain decisions. And we tried to adhere to that, the executive branch, and we're hoping that the Assembly can adhere to that also. We are here to answer any questions that you may have about the budget or anything else, so that gives you an update of what we have been doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. Mary, thank you. Bill, thank you for all the nice things that you said. It's been a pleasure for me to have had an opportunity to work closely with you. Are there any questions? George?
Yeah. I'd like to second what Lance just said, especially about the new federal fire station at the air base. I really wasn't prepared to see what a beautiful building it is. It's very reminiscent in style of the Deer Island plant that we visited over 10 years ago. It's brick and crushed and broken concrete and lots of iron and steel. It's too nice for words. But even nicer is the space that's going to be devoted to the county E911 program. It has, it's approximately 1,000 square feet that's devoted to that, but there is a limit, we were told, to the number of towns, and there are 2 towns away from reaching the limit. And I've been talking to town officials in the last several days and urging them to take a look at this facility because there isn't going to be another one like it. On the Lower Cape, we have a problem. Because dispatchers have to be trained and have to be certified, there just aren't enough people to do that, so that we're particularly dependent on a good labor force, because any 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job, it means 5 people for that one job when you include the 8-hour shifts, the sick time, and vacation. So I would urge any town official to look at it while the iron is still hot. The floor in the facility is a type that has ducting underneath. You can lift up squares and get at the ducting or the wires, and it has a very unusual view of the airstrip. And it's like people used to do in the 40s. They'd go to the airport to watch the planes take off and land, because it was an exciting thing. It's really quite something. Going to the jail was a bit depressing, especially when they brought the 5 or 6 Latina women in to be processed from New Bedford. And they were, I think, ranged in age from about 29 to 39. They were presumably mostly indigenous people. And when I was a Peace Corps volunteer, these were the people who would give you the shirts off their backs in their own country and treat you very nicely. And here we are locking, in our own Anglo-Saxon way, locking them up. It just made my head spin. I remember being invited by coffee growers who were dirt poor to sit down and have coffee, have crackers, and have Edam cheese, which they eat in the Caribbean, which cost them a lot of money. There were 5 or 6 of us there. And that's what they do, and this is what we do. So it's a really depressing experience. Thank you.
Thank you, George, for that update. I hope that all of us can get out to visit the jail. John?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Lance, you mentioned that the Registry of Deeds tax was down again in April. Was it down in equal amounts to last April, or were there any signs of hope was there a slight uptick in April? Do you have numbers, or I know it's very early, it's only 2 days after the April books closed.
No, we compare it to last year's April, John. Those are the general numbers that we look at, and we were hoping for an uptick, but it was off. Not substantially, I want to say 3 to 5%. But again, off from where we expected and still down, and we're really hoping that when the nice weather finally gets here and things start turning, and we hope the economy will kick back in where housing market continues to, not just stay stagnant, but grow a little bit. And we have seen that May, June, July are, usually pretty good months for us, so we're hoping to finish strong. I think we are close to what Mark has budgeted for us, but we're watching it very closely.
Any other questions?
We're down about 18% right now.
18%.
And when we started, we were 30% down. And so right now, it's right around 18%.
Okay. Ron?
Yeah, you show in your sheet a shortfall, or actually reductions of 1.5 million. We also contributed, I think, about 300,000 more or less, maybe 320,000 in human service grants in the last fiscal year. So what I'm getting from this sheet is that the total revenue were down, or our available revenues were down $1.8 million? Is that what the figure is? Where we're spending 1.8 less this year than we were last year?
The number was 1.7. 1.7 less this year than last year. Is about a 6% turnoff for us. There's certain things that we can't control, the unfunded pension liability and health insurance and things like that we do our best to kind of watch, but there's certain things that we can't, there are certain things that we can, and this is just a highlight. This is not all of them. This is a highlight of some of the things, direct shots that our departments took. And one of the things that we talked about a little earlier was, if funds become available, how should those funds be used? And obviously we think that our core budget should be made full before we look to do other programs.
Any other questions? Dennis?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So if we continue in this 3 to 5% shortfall for the rest of the fiscal year, does that mean that we will be dipping into reserves to cover expenses?
In the worst-case scenario, we would have to do that. We would have no choice. We have been very conservative in our budget, and I do expect that when it ends up, we'll be right on where Mark has targeted. I must say, Mark has done a wonderful job in the 6 years I've been a county commissioner. I mean, really, when you look at our budget, $25 million, for some reason, people think it's a lot more, but as I said in my email to you folks, a lot of school department budgets on the Cape are much bigger than our whole budget. But Mark has been very accurate in his projections of where the Registry of Deeds funds will come in as part of that $25 million, and I expect him to be right on again this year. So we're hoping that we end up absolutely zero, even. It would be great if we ended up with some extra money, but we're not predicting that at this time. We're hoping for the best, and we expect that it'll end up, as a level.
Ray?
Yeah, I want to go through again the building reserve fund, because again, I think, we want to be really clear before any vote is taken today. The impact of moving the lab up to the Hill, which is part of that money allocated for that, and obviously we know that is a revenue producer. Again, I need to hear the impact of taking 100 or 150,000 from that fund on our ability to do that.
I want to say, kind of address that in two ways. One, we're in the process, as we have been over the last 4 or 5 years, of seeing where the county is going to grow, where it's going to be, the footprint that it's going to be. We've done some studies here to see what we should do with the jail, what we shouldn't do with the jail, what we can, the financial feasibilities of making that offices, for example, or knocking the whole thing down. We have different plans, including the sheriff's house that's up on the hill, being used for county offices. One thing that we know is that the courts are squeezed, we're squeezed, we continue to grow as a county, and as we take on more and more responsibilities, each of our departments needs more room. So as we've been fiscally responsible over the last few years to squirrel some money away, and not a tremendous amount of money, when you say 1.8 million or 1.9 million, considering if in fact when the county does a new building, the estimates are anywhere from $5 to $8 million. Now, we know estimates, they come in at 5, and then, the total build-out ends up being 10. So we're doing our best to keep a reserve because we know the county has to grow. For example, our lab department. If anybody's been over in the Superior Court, we know we're downstairs, we got pipes, people got a duct to go through their office. It's 80 degrees in one area, it's 45 degrees in another area. So we know that's not a good situation for them. We're trying to get them up into the lab as quick as we can, and we need those funds to be able to do that. But I think more than knowing that we're going to need some funds to have the county grow in a facility over the next few years. And let me just say also, we're trying not to bond money. We're trying not to borrow money to use, to accept the growth that the county is taking on. So we've had that money to reduce what we have to go out and borrow and the assessments that, in fact, then would go on to the towns and cost them more money. But having said that, I don't think that the county commissioners are worried about $100,000 or $155,000 in a $25 million budget. I think what we are worried about is the precedent of taking from reserves. I've always said, and Mary and Bill have joined me to say, we at the executive branch set our budget, we send it over to you, and we send it over with the expectations that there may be different ideas over here, that there may be things that you folks want to do that we did not, for some reason, take into consideration during our budget process, and we accept that. Certainly, $100,000 on a $25 million budget, I don't see as any problem at all. It's the idea of taking them from reserves that sets the precedent that at the executive branch we're very nervous about. And it doesn't matter, quite honestly, if it's a small amount or a large amount, it's that precedent of doing that, I think, that the county commissioners caution the assembly about. Having said that, again, we've done the best that we thought we could do with our budget. We certainly understand the needs that are out there on a personal basis. Bill and Mary and myself have all been involved in the human service needs that are out there. But we made the tough decisions to do the best that we could with the funds that we had. And that's the budget that is in front of you today.
Thank you. Any other questions from anybody? Tom?
I'd like to clarify one point and then ask for a couple of words of wisdom. On the Economic Development Council, my understanding is there isn't going to be any reduction in the grants that are given out this year because the monies that were expended administratively came from an administrative reserve that they had. Next year there may be a problem with that, although I'm not sure how much money is still left in that. Is that correct?
I'll let Mary respond because she's our rep on the EDC. But
That's absolutely correct.
Yep.
That was reserve money that would have been sent out in grants, but because it was there, we used that for but next year, there wouldn't be enough to...
So they gave out roughly $400,000 last year. They're going to do $400,000 this year and cover their miss.
Yes.
Secondly, through the committee process and then through the Finance Committee heard that the Committee on Natural Resources was interested in being sure that the Cape Cod Water Protection Collaborative had enough money to actually do some things if they were sitting at the table trying to negotiate or whatever. And I know there's $100,000 in this budget to cover the individual salary that's going to be a contracted basis with some expenses. There was talk of monies that had previously been appropriated but not expended that would be available to them. And somewhere through the discussion, it seemed to be that the collaborative was hoping that 75% of $75,000 that would be appropriated into this year's budget. There may be some mechanical difficulties with that, as we've heard from our clerk, and I'm just looking for assurances that that money, either administratively through you, is available to them so that as they work in 2007 and 8, they have finances to fall back on. Is that correct in that assumption?
again, Bill is our representative on the wastewater collaborative, so I'll let him respond.
We spoke, at the Finance Committee as it was ending, the $191,000 that was the money that has been already authorized and appropriated is available. Some of that money is being expended to pay, Andrew Gottlieb's contract through this year. The remainder of that money, which is already available, is available for the wastewater collaborative to apply both to the contract expense as well as to other areas that they might decide to apply it to, which means it's part of the business that they're going through.
Okay. And finally, during our budgetary debate last week, discussion, I had suggested that there be put together some sort of human services financing study commission, and that members to be appropriated as the county commission saw fit, and reporting back, answering some of the basic questions that have come through this debate of, should the county be in the business of providing human services funding? If so, what is that revenue source for that? Is it interest off reserves? Is it, some other taxation proposal? Whatever folks may want to put on the table. Through that discussion, one of the members added, one of the other delegates added that the county commissioners have been planning to put together such a commission or study group. Is that correct?
Well, let me just first say, Tom, that I don't think it's working great the way it's working right now. And I think it's been that way for 4 or 5 years, quite honestly, since we've had a surplus, where we send ideas over to you that we think are the best way to spend money, and the Assembly kind of gets lobbied, or vice versa. The Assembly gets lobbied and the Commissioners get lobbied, and we know that we have been against each other in a couple of years in a row, and when we look at what it is, it's for the needs of the social services. And, I think I speak for Bill and Mary when I say, look, we're passionate about the human service needs of Cape Cod. We understand them. I think we understand them well. But I don't think that this process, quite honestly, is working. So I expect that over the summertime, we will form a committee, and it'll be a committee made up of county commissioners and Assembly of Delegates representatives, to really talk about what our role in human service should be. Should we be a provider? Should there be a cap on what we give out? We've thrown around a lot of discussion at the executive branch of, whether we should give grants out at all, whether we should just target, for example, on just doing Children's Cove, or just doing Children's Cove and Meals on Wheels. There are different ideas, I think, that different people should be able to talk about, and I think that's what we will do on the off-season. So as we go in the next budget year, it will be a lot more of a predictable outcome so people know. There are other things that have been brought up, Tom, and that is, Mark Forrest was very clear in saying that when the federal government gives out money, they always expect a matching fund. We don't require that. In addition, a lot of times they say these funds can't be used for the day-to-day bills or the salaries of the people, is for new initiatives and things that need to be done. So those are all things that we've considered, but again, we expect to form a committee, talk about what's the best role for the county in human services, and I expect during next budget year we'll have a better grasp on how it will go forward.
And I would recommend that committee be inclusive of some of those that are directly affected, because they may well have because they may well have ideas that, could add to the whole discussion, and they're our constituents, and perhaps help us, in the direction that we move in.
In addition to that, Bill represents us often at the National Association of Counties, and he's also checking into how other counties deal with this kind of thing, because some of the best programs that we have, we've learned from other people, we've learned from their mistakes, and we've made them better. So Bill is our connection to NACO, and he'll be working on that over the next year also.
I'd just like to add to that the most important thing that we need to do is we need to come up with a policy that, that is outside of the financing process. I think that, as a community of, let's say, of government, we need to, the executive branch certainly has the ultimate responsibility for setting a policy, but it's my sincere belief that by the inclusion of, let's say, of members of the Assembly, the constituents that you mentioned, but also I think we need to reach out to the community at large, because I would say that there is a need of education and participation by the business community, as well as by the ordinary citizens and taxpayers in this process, so that there's a clear understanding of what we're trying to do. I have defended the idea that we are not supporting our favorite charities. We've tried to put together a deliberative process where we try to identify the priorities that were established by the Human Service Advisory Committee and try to apply them. There were some miscommunications as far as the way we established what the costs were, but I think that was important to find out if a priority of effort is set, what would it cost to put that priority in place. And I think that our intent, while while good, has not resulted in what I would call a sustainable outcome. I think we need to look at that, and we need to examine what is the right policy, what is the right thing for us to do as a county government to support those things. So you will definitely see that committee be formed, after the budget process.
Thank you.
And Tom, I would like to say that the council has done its job. The council that we created has certainly done its job, and we have to respect all sides of that. We have to respect every angle of. And one of the things that's happened to us is the needs have grown faster than anybody could possibly, any one organization could ever support. The needs are there, and the needs have grown.
Are there any other questions, John?
Well, I appreciate your direction on this, Commissioners, and I just want to add that the timeline is crucial, and we can't forget other forms of government. More traditionally, the larger forms of government have handled human services needs because of the sheer volume of the dollars involved, and at a $25 million budget, we're really not equipped to handle all of those, and probably never will be with the present revenue stream. So I would just urge you to come up with a timeline and maybe have a definite end line before so we can make some decisions and decide before the next budget process starts that we decide whether we're going to be in the human services business or not, and if so, how deeply, and if how deeply, where does the money come from? I mean, those are timelines that we should set now.
And John, just to respond to that, I think that's one of the things that was pointed out to us during this process, that we should in fact be working closer with our Cape delegation to get some state funds down here, that we should be working closer with our federal delegations, our congressmen, and our state senators to get some more funds flowing from the federal government and the state government down here. They know that there's a need. In many other areas of the state, it is picked up by the state. I think it's the same as always. When things are being taken care of by somebody else, it's easy to walk away from it. But the reality is, you're right, at a $25 million budget, we are restricted by what we can do. But we will make that effort, and in fact, Mary has already done some outreach, Bill has done some outreach, and myself too, both federally and with our Cape delegation. So not that answers the problem, and not that we want to take the burden and put it back on the state or back on the federal government, but the reality is a percentage for them takes care of our whole budget. It's a bigger chunk of our budget, certainly, so we can work to communicate better with them our needs and see if we can get some federal funds from them.
Sheila, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to, piggyback on my endorsement of creating a committee of what you were speaking of, and I agree with Commissioner Doherty in that I think that part of the mandate of that committee should be to educate the public and to use the delegates themselves to go out and help reach out to their community forums, their Chamber of Commerce, and those groups that will try to get the word out and educate people to understand this is where the county is. I don't think anybody in this room, the commissioners or the Assembly of Delegates or anyone present, I think we all feel the same way about human services and helping those in need. And because of the restraints in the budget and precedents that were set before of giving it to human services, excess monies, it was done, and it's a reality right now. And I don't see this year. I know that the needs have grown just in Wellfleet, and it's a very small population. This year is the year that we could, maybe say this is truly it, and educate people to this, and say this is it until we examine it, and have everyone come to that agreement and understanding, and accept the reality of the situation, because otherwise it's pitting us against somebody else, and I don't think that's really where we are. I don't look at that as in the process of working with you or with the people in this room, and I think people really would rather work with their government as opposed to feeling it's us against them, and I think the more we educate everyone, including ourselves, that will work better. So.
Agreed.
John, do you have another question?
Yeah, one more thing, too. I had a lengthy conversation with Mark Forrest today, and he gave me a commitment that he would be willing to meet with us in the near future to discuss the congressman and the federal government's role in handling all of our human service needs, and give us some sort of a set of guidelines with which we can start to move forward in a productive method as opposed to swimming upstream like we have been. But that was today, and I told him that I would ask the Speaker and the Chair to move forward to invite Mr. Forrest here for that matter. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Ray?
Yeah, you may know this, but unfortunately, none of the items did get in the state budget through the Ways and Means. I know that you had lobbied, but again, we have a very small budget here, $25 million, and again, none of these items were funded as submitted by our Cape legislative delegation. So again, that's going to be part of our decision-making here, where we go. So
Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions from the members of the Assembly?
Just as an update too, Ray, to add to that, our CMAQ grants were not in the new bond bill either, and that affects a large amount of people on the Cape and our shellfish program to our extension program. So we were alarmed about that, and again, we need to improve the communication for our Cape delegation. I think we're already working on that, but there's room for improvement there for sure.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for coming, bringing the information to the members that you did today. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.